You know what, bro? I feel I just got finished looking at. I didn't look at it all, but it was a reaction video where it was some twin brothers that did a video of a so-called black man going into the women bathroom. You know what I'm saying? Trying to say that he was peeping at another black woman, and uh, I understand that. You know, when it comes to us, they punish us more, but here's my problem. Then I'm gonna cut to the chase. Why would you go and tell a so-called white man rat out a so-called black man, somebody who looked just like you, when the colonized white people, so-called white people, are the colonizers of this planet, and that's all they do. You have to understand, black woman. Uh, the black man learned that from white supremacy. Everything that our people do, don't get me wrong, we all would be tempted in a lot of ways like that. You see what I'm saying? We're tempted and stuff and things of that nature. But when we come into the truth, we just guard our spirits. You see what I'm saying? We know how to like take and guard our spirits, and stuff like that. But there ain't nobody on this planet who's more of a rapist and a more of a peeping tom and all that type of stuff and stalking you and all that kind of stuff is so-called white people. We can just be in the store just paying for our shit. Just like a few days ago, this so-called white boy, this damn fucking devil came up because he was mad because I stood up for a black woman because he was saying she needed she didn't pay for her receipt. And I said, that's y'all fucked up cash registers y'all got up in here that's doing that. Them fucked up self-checked out registers and all of that shit. And he butted in me in another brother's conversation. And I told him, I said, man, I'm not talking to you. I said it in a smart way, and he got mad because that was my way. He knew that was my way of speaking up for the black woman or whatever. But I know they wouldn't speak up for me like that. They'll go totally against you. You know what I'm saying? And then they got the so-called white woman coming out there speaking up, saying, "Oh, she kind of gave a witness to what the black man was doing or whatever, and things of that nature." The white man do way worse than that. Name a virtuous white man. Name a physical virtuous white man who ain't never taught nobody. The white woman, the white man. Name the so-called white woman is just as devious as the white man. Everything that the white man does, the white woman is they all of that too, because they came from the white man. So you blame the white women too, because white women they are predators too by nature. They are. And when a so-called white man does it, they say that he needs mental health, he need all this shit, but they want to try to fucking shame a black man, a so-called black man, if he's suspect of doing something like that. Or let's just say if he did, he'll get the worst end of everything. He'll be looked at as a super criminal. When the so-called white man that went around the world and done worse than that, went around stealing everybody's identity and calling it his, killed over 70 million Native Americans, hundreds and hundreds of millions of natives in this country over here, and all of that. But yet and still, the black woman, you go to the so-called white man to rat your own people out over something that you felt that he insulted you or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Uh, that's why the Bible tells you, dare any of you to go before the law of the unjust and try to solve a matter. Because at the end of the day, if that was a so-called white man looking at that black woman like that, he wouldn't have went nowhere. They wouldn't have done. Wouldn't have held him to that standard. He would have got say, well, he gonna get mental health therapists and everything else, whatever else in the hell he needs. If that was a so-called white man, she wouldn't even done that. She said, well, she would have said the opposite if it was a so-called white man. I guarantee you, she wouldn't have went against that black man. And that's my biggest issue of it from that myself. Looking at If see the black woman, if a black or white so-called white man, a white woman, or a white man would have went in there and they would have been looking at staring her down like that and looking at her in the bathroom and stuff like that, she would have turned around and made a damn excuse for him. Like, oh, I understand. He needs help. He just needs to get him some mental help and all that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? But as long as it's black on black, they don't care. They'll lock them up. They'll lock us up. Yeah. My part, what bothers me is the double standard. See, so-called white people have what they call uh white supremacy. They have the privileges of doing whatever, the privilege of freedom to do whatever they want to do, and they cannot be punished for it. There's a scripture in Zechariah chapter 11 and verse 5. The Bible says, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. They ain't gonna hold themselves guilty to shit. That means that the so-called white man don't even have a guilt in his nature. Yeah. So that's my problem, my take on to it. And the white man, when he was the so-called white man, definitely said, well, he sure is going to jail for it. And that's in their fucking nature. Is to go around the world and do shit like that. You know what I'm saying? They do worse than that. Just like that so-called white man in the fucking store watching me. And I told him in so many words, I let him know you messing with the right person. Here in Walmart in Hammond, Louisiana. That's right. That's right. At the Walmart in Hammond, Louisiana. I think that motherfucker wear glasses. Mm-hmm. The so-called white man and white woman done raped every damn body. It ain't not one person they ain't mess with. You know, I'm about falling asleep up here, bro. But that's the way our people are. That's why you can't really trust our people, because they is encountered with white culture. They sold out to white supremacists. They sold out to white culture. So they'll sell you out in a minute. They'll tell on you in a minute. They don't care nothing about their own people. What she could have done, she could have just fussed at him and just say, I know we all in this world and we black, you black like you so-called black just like me, and I don't want to see you in no trouble. So don't go around doing, even though I felt insulted that you did this here or whatever, but just don't go around and be doing this here. This type of stuff, because the so-called white man, we live in a so-called white supremacist world, and the white man, they control this hand, and I don't want to see you go down. And I can't just sit up here and just speak against you as a so-called you looks like me. You know what I mean? Because think about it. No matter what them white folks do, them white folks, they turn around and they speak up for each other. They can hate each other's guts, but they ain't gonna go. You best believe it. They ain't gonna go against their own. No other culture, really. If you think about the Ethiopians, the Somali, they call them Somalis, and Filipinos, and all those different people. Them people, you think about, if you look at it, when the last time have they ever went to the white man on the so-called white man on their own people? You've never seen that. Mm-mm. When the last time you ever seen Japanese, Chinese, or whatever go enslave and be an uncle? They're not gonna go against no other nation of people for nobody. You know, they're not gonna do that. Yeah, yeah, it's something out here. When it come down to it, they gonna stick together. The so-called white man, woman, and child, when it come down to really bonding together and being together, guess what? I'll give you an example. When they conquered and took these lands, when the so-called white man came and colonized this country, took this land from the Native American, when the French and the Dutch and all of those, they took and went and took slaves and all this type, took our people and put them in slavery, and then turn around and colonize every country, every planet that they went to, they colonized it and took off all those people, took off everybody's resources and identity and all of that. Guess what? They didn't come in love and do that. They didn't say, well, we're going to go and ask these people for this hand. They went and they took it. They took it. Yeah, they went around and took what they wanted. They didn't. They got it through war. Everything that they got the banks. They own the stores. They own everything. So to the point of where we got to go to them for everything. Guess what? They went and they conquered and they got everything that they got. The so-called white man. They went around the world, conquered people's land, took off people's land, stripped people of their resources, took and fucked the water up, bleached the water. That's why we got chlorine in our damn water. Because they done polluted the fruit trees and everything. Yeah. They just pollute everything. Everything, even they go around and fuck with the animals and stuff. They do all kind of shit. They will go when they wanted and to conquer our people, they didn't ask our people for nothing. They just took it. Yeah, they just took what they want. Mm-hmm. So you think about us. We didn't go around taking what they had. A lot of our people go and ask the so-called white man for what they want. The so-called white man, he'll lock you up for taking something from him, but he'll want you to take and try to pound us for a fucking receipt and all that type of stuff. You pay for this and you pay for that and all of that. And the so-called white man ain't gonna, they ain't, and white woman and child, they ain't gonna work nowhere where they can't take nothing and steal nothing. They the biggest thieves, the biggest rapists, the biggest robbers, the biggest murderers, and everything else you want to think of on the planet. And this so-called black woman was willing to go, went to the white man, so-called white man on her brother. You know? Yeah. So man, they took what they want. So we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk some more about that in another video. But I'm talking about the double standards here. Also, oh well, I done set up here and went to sleep. I thought I had turned this down. All right, I'll see y'all later.